Fire Emblem challenge runs, hardcore Ironmans, low turn count, 0% growth. These are all ways for veteran players of the series to try to add more difficulty into their runs. But there is a black sheep among these challenge runs, and that is soloing. In my opinion, soloing Fire Emblem is not a challenge at all, and in many cases is actually a lot easier than just playing the base game as intended. Rather humorously, the most common games for these solo challenge runs are the GBA game, which are among the easiest entries of the series to begin with, but with a heavy enemy phase focus, juggernauting with one character just completely trivializes any semblance of difficulty the game might have had left. Now, some of you are probably wondering, Speedwing, why are you even talking about this? Why does this matter? Just let people enjoy things, bro. Well, one of the main peddlers of these so-called challenge runs was incredibly hostile to me out the blue. And then I just suddenly found myself far more interested in this topic. Funny how that works. Fire Emblem at its core is a game about managing resources, experience, gold, weapons, stat boosters. All these things are resources that the player has to strategically split up amongst their army. Who gets what? What can I allow one unit to have at the detriment of another unit losing out on it? But when it comes to soloing the game, none of this matters. All this strategic depth just flies out the window. All the XP? Yes please bro, I'm now going to be terribly over-leveled, and it doesn't matter because there's no one else to train or no one else to give it to. Gold? Again, doesn't matter. You're only outfitting one unit, which means you can just sell every single weapon and item that they don't need and have effectively an infinite supply of gold to buy the things that you do need. And stat boosters, these are probably the worst offender of all, and I will be getting into this in more detail later. But first, let's talk about experience. Using one unit means that they are getting all the experience in the game. The games are balanced around the concept that the player is going to be spreading out the XP among units, and developers have a vague idea in their head of the sort of average level that the player's characters are going to be at. But by just using one unit and funneling everything into them, they break way past the developer's intention. Now, particularly in the GBA games, with a lack of any form of skills or debuffs to watch out for, this very quickly turns into a unit that is godlike and not be damaged, or if they do get damaged, it's the very minimal amounts, and has enough speed and luck that they're dodging half of the things anyway. But Speedwing, I hear you cry, what about the experience curve? When a unit gets over-leveled, they start getting less XP. Surely that's the solution to this issue. Well, not really. The GBA game XP curves are pretty bad. They did fix this in the later titles, but at this stage of the Fire Emblem series, you can become exceedingly over-leveled, and you basically don't face any punishment for it. This is more of a punishment when a over-leveled unit is maybe getting 2 or 3 kills per map. But when a unit is getting 20-30 kills a map, reduced experience doesn't really matter that much. You only have a cap of 20-20 after all. You're going to reach this quite fast. And even if this wasn't the case, every map has a boss, which is quite a high level, so you're always going to get boss experience from them, making sure they can stay relevant regardless. The classic of this is giving all the early boss kills to Seth and him just snowballing into a monstrosity, despite allegedly being such a high level that the XP curve should stop him doing this. You've now got your over-leveled, high-statted unit. You've still only got one character. Surely they will be overwhelmed, right? Well, no. I don't really think so. The thing with only having one unit is you can play incredibly slapdash with them. You can just throw them onto terrain willy-nilly because it doesn't matter about any other units that you would normally be scared of positioning. When moving up on a Fire Emblem map, you're going to have squishy low-level units such as mages and healers that you've got to kind of hold back, make defensive formations around. But when you're only using one unit, you can just move them onto the terrain of your choice, such as a forest or a mountain, or ideally something with self-healing like a fort, and then just play end turn simulator until everything is dead. And because gold doesn't matter, you can just buy infinite vulneries for self-healing if required. I would say the hardest part of a solo run is probably the first couple of chapters. The first couple of chapters are going to be a little bit stressful. You've got to really position yourself fairly carefully. They're genuinely interesting. This is the interesting part of the run. Probably the first 5% of it before you start outscaling everything. But even then, because you have unlimited gold, you can just quaff vulneries as much as you like. This is compounded even worse by something I see quite commonly in these challenge videos, in that they give whatever character they're soloing with a convoy. So you can just have 40 vulneries in the convoy and just infinitely pull them out. Balanced. Okay, so the XP curve doesn't matter. Gold doesn't matter. Weapons don't matter. What about if the unit levels up poorly? Surely then things might get a bit challenging. Perhaps you just don't level up the stats you need. And GBA Fire Emblem is all about base stats. Do you have a high enough defense that you can tank hits? Do you have a high enough speed that you don't get doubled? Well, the thing is, with Sacred Stones especially, these thresholds are laughably low. Laughably low. Let's take a look at level 1 Erica, for example. Level 1 Erica has 9 speed. This is level 1. With 39 more levels to grow. This is enough to not be doubled by the majority of enemies at the end of Sacred Stones. I am not joking. Enemies have a range of stats they can get from low to high that's just generated when you enter the map. On the second to last map, the last map that has human enemies, which are a lot more scary than the monster enemies of the game, the enemy snipers have between 9 to 12 speed on difficult. This is on the hardest difficulty. On the hardest difficulty, Erica at level 1 at base is not being doubled. Excuse me? But what about her defenses? Well, sure, they're probably going to do a fair amount of damage to a level 1 Erica. But bear in mind, you are level 40 at this point. But to play complete devil's advocate, let's say you leveled up terribly. You basically got no defense levels at all. Surely you're cooked now, right? I mean, let's just ignore the fact that you probably have enough speed and luck that the enemies aren't even going to be hit you in the first place. But what happens if they do? Well, I have a scientific theory for why it just simply doesn't matter at all. Stat boosters are broken. That's my scientific theory. Stat boosters are items that are incredibly powerful in Fire Emblem. They allow you to give guaranteed stats to units of your choosing. Now, usually people will use these as a sort of way to give units a little bit extra in something they're missing. Perhaps they are 1 or 2 speed off hitting doubling thresholds, will time to give them a speed wing. Or maybe you have a tanky unit and they just haven't been leveling defense the way you want them to, so you're going to give them a Draco shield. Now, when it comes to soloing, these become turbo I win button items, stopping any form of RNG affecting you in the slightest. Now, going back to Sacred Stones, I don't know why I keep bringing up that game, but it just seems like an obvious choice. You get 2 Draco shields by Chapter 9. That is +4 defense. by chapter 9. Go back to our friend Erica. She has a 30% defense growth. This means that she's likely, on average, to get a point of defense every 3 and a bit levels. Let's call it 3, round it down. This is a slightly blessed Erica. She's getting more defense levels than expected. Plus 4 defense is the equivalent to 12 average levels given to you, the character, as soon as chapter 9. 12 levels higher. And bear in mind, whatever unit you're soloing with is already above the expected level for that stage of the game. Stat boosters are the real enemy of why solo runs just aren't challenging. They remove any chance that things might go awry. Normally stat boosters, unless you are an ultra favoritism got sort of fella, are not going to be all put onto one unit. Once you put them all onto one unit, you have now got a level 40 unit with stats up to 10, 15 levels higher than they should be. At that point, you're almost guaranteed to cap out every important stat possible. It's ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, I'm taking this thing off. I'm getting so hot. Okay, so now we've determined XP doesn't matter, gold doesn't matter, weapons don't matter, stats don't matter. Where exactly is the challenge in this so-called challenge run? Well, perhaps it could be if the unit dies? Is that a game over? I'm not even expressly sure if this is like a common thing in challenge run solo runs. I've seen some people say it sometimes, other people say it, no, don't say it at all, which means you can just, if something does go wrong, you're just going to keep resetting the map over and over until RNG is in your favor, which is actually quite likely because you're not going to be facing 100% hit from any enemy. You can just keep doing it until you dodge correctly. Now, something I will say about these videos is they don't show all the footage. But who's to say they don't just cheat? Now, this is definitely a little bit of a reach, but hear me out on this. If you are only showing the first few chapters of the game and then skipping right to the end game and going, so guys, we did it. Here's the end of my challenge solo run. Who's to say you didn't just load a save state and use FE Builder to put them up to level 2020? What would the difference be? None. I can almost sympathize with doing this. It's basically one of two options. One, you didn't show all the footage because you were aware that it's super boring and showcases that there's no challenge to the run at all. No one wants to watch multiple hours of enemies just going tink, 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 miss, 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 and you just sweeping through the game. Or option 2, like I said, you just use FE Builder to skip to the final chapter. What's the difference? You were never under any threat anyway. Anyway, I've been wanting to make this video for a very long time, and I decided not to because I know a lot of people do enjoy these runs. And I'm not trying to rain on people's parade. If you enjoy these sort of videos because you like the commentary, you like the person making them, even if they are weirdly aggressive to people that have never interacted with them before, or whatever, that's perfectly fine. They're probably actually a very good vehicle just for having a nice yap, a nice discussion, sort of like I've done in this video today, although maybe it's not been so nice. Do not feel disheartened. But I am very firm in my position that GBA solo runs are not a challenge at all. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll catch you later.